we have bird dogs. So a bird dog is just sort of a flipped over dead bug. As you guys have seen again in a lot of our restoration courses, it's very important drill because we have a lot of anti-rotation, we have a lot of connecting of the chains, again, the shoulder, core, and hip, but also what we like about this drill is you learn ground engagement. So that's a big thing for a lot of people before we get too far down the line of helping the shoulder, is that a lot of shoulder issues are just from people inappropriately loading the shoulder because they're not creating tension to other places of the body. So before we get too far, we're just going to get into a quadruped position with Jessica here. Now, I'm going to move her hair a little bit so you can see some of what's happening at the shoulder. So first off, we just want to start with good angles, right? We want a vertical thigh. We want shoulder over hands. So at this point, if her knees were too close, basically like here, obviously we don't want her there. If she's too far back, obviously we don't want her there. So we want right underneath the hips. Same thing with the shoulders. And what we want to do is start to have her understand first how to grab the ground. So you see her fingers are really spread and she's going to create tension into the ground. Now if you see what just happened when she did that, you see the change in the shoulder. Just let's do that again. Let's relax. So a lot of this wing scapula stuff is just a lack of ground engagement, because as soon as she grabs the ground, look what happens. Now she doesn't try to turn her arms, she just grabbed the ground, and that caused that chain reaction to stabilize the shoulder. So now we got this nice scapular stabilization position. Now as she does that, we want to create tension and push through the balls of the feet and the lower body. And what you'll find is, now she didn't have that problem to begin with, but if she relaxes her lower body, see how she drops that pelvis. As soon as she pushes in, that pelvis gets set. So both what's happening at the scapula, what's happening at the pelvis, is what's happening with the feet and the hands. And then we just want to make sure that her head's in a good neutral position. So right here we could have her really create a lot of tension in the ground for about 10 seconds, and then we'd give her like a 5-second rest. Okay? 10 seconds really create a lot of tension, and then we would do a 5-second rest and relax, Jess. So this is a good foundational part where people can understand how they're going to create force against their body, because the challenge of the bird dog is obviously we want to hold that position as we create movement. Well, if you don't own that position first, you won't understand how to resist movement as we add complexity to the exercises. So this is a great quadruped position. This is better than for a lot of people than just doing a standard plank, because they're more supported by their body weight and it won't be so hard in their shoulder. This is a better way of teaching that bracing concept and getting them to understand using the hands and feet is crucial for both shoulder, core, and hip stability. So the next series is actually some of my personal favorites, because I think it actually accomplishes more for people than a lot of our dragging variations. I love our drags. The problem is that people have a really difficult time doing them well. The isometric pulls accomplish a lot of the goals of the drags and build a better foundation. And a lot of times when people do the drags, they go too fast, they try to throw the bag, they elevate their hips. Basically it doesn't go well. So the iso pulls are actually a really important bridge, and they're challenging and they're tough. So what we want to do is make sure our setup is correct. So one of the things that we talk about is just making sure everything's in the right position. So generally what we tell people is logo side up. Now if you have an older ultimate sandbag, you want the neutral side grips up towards you. And what Jessica will do is she'll set up so that when she gets in that quadruped position, the bag is right up against her thighs. So as she moves in that position, so that's where she wants it. If the bag ends up by her hands, she'll get into her shoulder and she won't be able to connect that lat very well. So we want that bag nice and low upon the body. Now we're going to start in just in that quadruped position again, and what we're going to do is take one hand off the ground and just create tension against the handle. Now what she's doing a great job of, she's just low and pulling out. And relax, Jessica. What you don't want to do is try to lift the weight up. All right? That's wrong. See how we're now into that shoulder, we're not into that lat. So she just wants to take slack out of the bag and create tension into that handle. So let's do it again, Jess. At the same time, she's pushing through the balls of her feet and she's grabbing in that stance arm. And relax for a second. So what you'll want to watch right off the bat is what's happening in that stance arm, the arm that's still on the ground as the person lifts up the other arm. Because remember, the client is going to be relatively task oriented. They're going to be fixated upon trying to just get the tension in the handle. They'll forget that the real value is in what's happening in that stance arm. So if Jessica switches sides here, if she goes ahead and creates that pull on the other side, I want you to watch how she maintains this position here and see how that shoulder stability is really nice and tight. If she were to lose it a little bit, how she really folds and collapses, and that causes actually a bend in the other arm as well. What you'll have a hard time getting people to understand is that there's 3 points of contact that are really important. What's happening at the feet and what's happening at that stance arm. Because of the challenge of this, I recommend you start off with like a 2-second count. So create that tension, 1, 2, down, and then we'll go the other side. That also helps you prevent too much fatigue. So the progression would be simply to build up time. So if you can hold this for about 5 seconds in those intervals, then you can move on to more challenging progressions in the exercise. But don't really rush people, because you'll find that the fatigue accumulates quite quickly, especially in the format of a circuit where they're having to do other stuff as well.